All right. Tuck my hair back in. Okay. Hi, I'm Chevenise Gray. I'm 21. I was born in the Bronx, but I grew up in Jamaica for a little bit. Both my parents and grandparents are also from Jamaica.
You ready? All right. Hi, my name is Alex Andre Desamore. I'm 55 years old, born and raised in New York on Long Island, and my parents are from Haiti.
Right over here? Okay. Is my hair okay? Okay. Hi, my name is Rashida. I'm 33 years old from Tottenham, North London. My dad is Jamaican and my mom is Nigerian.
My name is Jonathan Wilson. I'm 51 years of age. I was born in Manchester, England, and my father is from Scotland, and my mother is from St. Kitts in the Caribbean.
I feel like, yeah, I feel like my parents didn't go out of their way to make sure I was immersed in Haitian culture. All they knew was Haitian culture. So growing up, I spoke French way before I spoke English. We weren't even allowed to speak English in the house when I was growing up. It was always French because I guess they figured we would learn English outside anyway. And all the Haitian cultures, customs, foods was all I knew. So when I started school, I kind of felt like an immigrant kid, even though I was born and raised in New York. At the time as well, we didn't speak Creole either because we were always told, at least this is what I was told as a kid, that Creole was an adult language, so only adults could speak it. I didn't learn Creole until I was a bit older, but now I love speaking it and try to carry on conversations with my other cousins as long as I can, just so I can get my practice in.
Okay, so I don't necessarily think my parents tried to stop me from being Jamaican per se or assimilate to American culture. I felt more pressure from my grandpa instead because he came here when he was like maybe 40, so I feel like he's become more Americanized and doesn't really like Jamaica that much per se. Yeah, so when we speak patois at home, he's like, oh, that's broken English, like speak American English, you're in America. And when I was younger, I would be like, okay, Grandpa, or sorry, Grandpa, or I meant this, not that. But now after growing up, I realized that I was kind of losing my Jamaican personality because I was listening to different music and speaking differently at home as well. I was like, why do I need to change myself just so that my grandpa can be like, great, she's speaking American. Like, that's not me. But for a huge chunk of time, like maybe until I was in middle school, my dad wasn't in America. So when he came to America and heard us speaking American English, he was like, I don't understand you. Like, speak patois. Like, you need to stop this American nonsense. You're not necessarily American. Like, you need to maintain your Jamaican roots. So every time I would try speaking to him, he'd be like, I don't understand it. So I was kind of forced to speak patois at home, and I feel like that's kind of how I retain my accent. And when I speak patois back in Jamaica, people don't look at me like, oh, you're American? Like, you're a foreigner? So, yeah, I think most of how I retained being Jamaican came from my dad and him pushing me to find my culture.
My house was, as much as my dad's Jamaican, he's a Rastafarian. So that basically means Africa first. So everywhere in my house is a representation of Black people. And my salon is like a mimic of the house that I grew up in. So pictures of Marcus Garvey, Muhammad Ali, Assata Shakur. That's how I grew up. And in terms of making sure that we were immersed in their cultures, they kept most things the same, from the foods that we ate to the way they dressed. So my dad, his mom is mixed race. Her parents are Indian, and her mom, well, my grandma's mom is half white and half Indian. But this woman is Jamaican, yeah? And my dad's dad is full on dark skinned Black man. My dad appears very light toned, kind of Indian looking. Now, growing up in them times, my grandma wasn't too happy with my dad's skin tone. She wanted him to be very much lighter, right? So for my dad, growing up, race was a big thing. And he always wanted a Black African woman, yeah? Hence my mom being Nigerian, right? So, yeah, he grew us up being very pro-Black, as in, I'm going to be very blunt in this interview. He's not interested in white people or anything that white people have to offer. He's always worked for Black people, Black organizations, and the same for myself too. Those things were very important to me, and those are the things my parents instilled in me. So you see what I'm saying? So yeah, I can still say today that that pro-Black mindset is still in me. And this space that I've created, I want it to be for Black women. Others can come and be spectators or even get their hair done, but this place, this is predominantly for us.
My father held on to his Scottish traditions while he was in England. Being British was never an identity that I grew up with or that he would espouse. Though it was always the case that, we're living in England. He just was proudly Scottish. And because he was my dad, I identified as Scottish, like right down to having a kilt. I mean, I spent all my holidays there, hanging out with people from my dad's side. Anyway, it wasn't until much later in life that I created my own identity of having multiple identities. Because when you're mixed race in England, people see your dark skin and they say, oh, you're Caribbean. Even if you say, my father, he's Scottish. They still identify you as Caribbean through your mom's bloodline, even if you say, okay, my dad is white and Scottish. It's like it's like it doesn't resonate, and it's because of the skin color. They see you, they think you look Caribbean, therefore you must be Caribbean, or it's you're not authentically Caribbean because you didn't grow up in the Caribbean.
What's interesting about over here, I never really identify as British. Growing up, if anyone asked me where I was from, I'd be like, yeah, I'm Jamaican, I'm Nigerian. Most Black people won't really say, well, Black people over here that I've met, even if they are born here, won't say that they are British. They'll always state that where their parents are from. So to feel like I had to be British to fit in, no. I was just a Black kid living in London. And the area that I grew up in was also predominantly Black. So growing up, I never felt out of place. I never had an identity crisis, let's put it that way.
I actually do consider myself to be full. Full something. Maybe not full white, but full Scottish, full Caribbean. I like to challenge people and say, why is it that I can't have the best of both worlds? Like, why can't I be full? If I had a white Scottish father and a white Welsh mother, I would be considered Scottish, right? So what's the difference? It's my skin color. So now, I identify as being black, politically black. And I tell my friends, being being mixed race, it doesn't mean that I get 50% less racism or 50% of a beating from a racial attack. I get a full fat beating. So I don't understand why I should have to concede any ground. And now I think that I play a game that suits me because I think for too long it suited them, where I will proudly profess myself as a black man and then I'll switch it up and say that I'm mixed race. You know, if I want to make a point, for example, to a white person who's telling me that I don't understand white people, I find that's when I'll say that I'm mixed race. And yeah, I do. I feel confident that I can go into the world and say that I'm a black man and a Scottish man and that I'm British and Caribbean and word, we can have that conversation. But it's taken me years thinking, debating, being made fun of and criticized. And identity crisis, that's probably a great phrase when you're just left thinking, I don't know.
Do I feel a sense of pride of being an American? Nah. Nope. Mm-mm. I'm Haitian first, American second. I'm Haitian. I bleed Haitian blood. I just happen to be born here in America, but I'm Haitian. Moi, c'est haïtien. Ou comprendre? Haïtien. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a proud Haitian till I die, you know? I mean, I don't get any cool points or brownie points for saying that. It's just who I am. Take it or leave it. You know, it's part of me. It's in me.
Well, I say that I'm Jamaican because I feel like I identify more with that side of my life. Because coming here and starting school, I already had a background in Jamaica, so it was something that was kind of hard to let go of. So it felt more like I was just gaining new information and not necessarily like starting over, if you get what I mean. And I feel like Jamaicans have a really strong sense of nationality. We have a very proud heritage, so anything other than being Jamaican is seen as like, I don't want that, you know? So I sometimes found myself being offended when people would assume that I was American because it was just like, I don't know how to explain it. It felt weird, like, what do you mean I'm American? I also think there's a negative connotation associated with being American going around in Jamaica. I also think for the Jamaican people who come to America and get to live that American lifestyle, for Jamaicans who are still back in the country, they look at you like you're less Jamaican than you were. So I feel like that just kind of created this stigma for me where I was like, I don't want to be American, and I hope that no one would look at me and think I'm American because that means I'm less American or less Jamaican than I was. I don't know if it's because of that time I came here, but I feel like being Jamaican was a cool thing. When I was going to school, people would always be like, oh, say this in patois, say that, or oh my God, I love oxtail, I love chicken curry and things like that. And I don't know if I'd say I felt more embraced or didn't feel the pressure of being American. It was more like I can just be myself because these people seem to like my culture. I think the only place I felt pressure to kind of change was from my teachers, because in Jamaica we would spell things or do math a little differently. So even if I was doing things the way how I was taught to in Jamaica and I'd get the same answers as my teachers, they would be like, that's wrong, you can't do that, like that's not how I taught you. And I didn't understand why they wouldn't allow me to do things the way I was taught. So I think that kind of frustrated me because in elementary school we had like different ribbons, a yellow one for improvement or a blue one for achievement, and I found myself never getting any ribbons because I wasn't doing it the way that they expected. So in the situation, I felt that I needed to change. because I really wanted the blue ribbon, and I think that growing up I kind of felt like a sense of resentment because they didn't allow me to be my authentic self or, just embrace what I was taught from my country.
I didn't feel pressure to be American. I just assumed I was American, you know? I'm American and Haitian at the same time. I didn't feel like this isn't my country or anything like that, but you can't help being in that environment, with your classmates and whatnot, feeling like I want what they have, but I didn't feel pressure to fit into being an American. In a way, I'm kind of glad of the way I grew up and where I grew up because in my neighborhood, I never saw white and black. I never saw color because all of my friends we were a mixed bag in our neighborhood. We had white, we had Ecuadorian, Haitian, Trinidadian, Brazilian, and that's all on like one block. So my friends, we all came from, or our parents were all immigrants from other countries. So everyone got along. That's just how it was. That's how it was in school. It wasn't until high school that things changed because I went to public school and it was more predominantly black. And then college. Yeah, college was even more of a drastic change because that was predominantly white. You know what I mean? So I started to see the world in different eyes because the environment changed.
No, I didn't. I didn't feel like I had to overcome any certain hurdles because of where my parents are from. And it's because of what I said, of how I was raised. Because I was always in that environment where black people were thriving. I didn't really see it until I got older and entered the workplace myself. I was always taught about it, so I was aware that that work can be a bit of a mean place. So yeah, it wasn't until I got into the workplace that I was like, okay, white lady, thief your idea, and then takes it to the meeting. And oh, this is her idea. Oh, okay, white lady, I know how to do with you now. No, but you know what I mean. That's how it was. So yeah, I would definitely say for me, it wasn't until I started really working, whereas my sister, I remember the situation when we was younger. This little white girl was having a party in her class, and they was all friends in school, but this party was at her home, so my sister wasn't invited. And my dad said, "It's okay, you don't need to go over to her house." And my sister was proper upset. You understand? She just did not understand it. My dad fully told her, "These white people, they don't want you in their space, yeah?" That's what it was, yeah? That's all it is. It's the truth. It's the truth because I will tell you the same thing, Sabine. Do you think they'll come over to my house? No. Right. So I was just a black Jamaican Nigerian living in London. And that's who I am and that's who I'll always be.
So the balance now for me is that I'm both people. You know what I mean? I'm Haitian and I'm American. There's no being Haitian one moment and then going, okay, now I'm going to be American in this situation. I'm both people blended. It's just who I am. And as a matter of fact, I feel more blessed to be something other than American. I'm blessed to know other cultures, languages, and I feel like it helps me to relate more to other people because I'm different. I don't have blinders on like Americans, and I get to be part of something special.
I always found it hard making Jamaican friends when I was in school. I went to elementary school and middle school in my area, but then when I went to high school in the South Bronx, so it was much more of a Hispanic community. Even then, I was trying to find other Jamaican people because I was like, I need to maintain my culture. It was sometimes a challenge because in front of the teachers and stuff, I would speak in a different accent because obviously uh, people would say patois is broken English. And then there's like academic English or, like AAVE. So in that way, I kind of had to like assimilate. Like I did not speak like this when I was growing up in high school. This is like something I adapted when I heard like, you know, the people here speaking in class. I feel like maybe early freshman year when I was in my classes, I felt the need to act closer to white, meaning in the way that I presented myself or the way I dressed and spoke. But that's why I decided to try and find a club or organization here on campus, because I just needed that safe space. I found CSA, which is the Caribbean Students Association, because I felt like I just needed a community of Caribbean people who would understand me. Like now I can speak how I want and behave in a way that people would understand. Like if I make jokes about things that happened to me while I was in Jamaica, or like how my parents behave, they understand me. And every day I thank the person who introduced CSA to me, because I don't think I would have been able to survive in college if I never had that community. Yeah, especially a major like politics, it's just really hard to find your community.
When I facilitate talks, I like to joke that I didn't know that I had a black mom and a white dad until I went to school. Because before that, they were just mom and dad. You know how I told you that I had a kilt? Well, I remember going to Scotland for university to a function where I decided to wear my kilt, which is my national dress. And I remember the people on the street saying, "What is that darky doing wearing our clothes?" And I remember thinking, that's just, the people on the street. And then it was my taxi driver. And then I went to school, and it was all of my Scottish classmates that were questioning me. And then it got worse. They all wanted to look under my kilt. All the boys wanted to know what black men looked like in the trouser department. It's just really, it's really real. And it took so much courage. And after that, I gave my kilt to my brother and I said, "Listen, you can have it, because I don't want to put that on." It took 20 years. It was after that I got my doctorate that I felt the courage to put it back on. And when I did, it made me feel sick. Physically sick of that side of my family. And that's when I leaned on my Caribbean side. And yeah, that's when the journey really began. But I've just never had a safe space. That's why now I'm a bridge builder. And I try to create a safe space for other people. You know, when people say now, they say, you know, what are you? I say, you know, I'm Scottish. And they say, ah, you're Caribbean. And I say, no, I'm Scottish. Or I'll say, what is it about you that you feel this need to define me? But the truth is now, like, I'm happy being both identities. When you have this kind of caramel, coffee, latte colored skin complexion, you get mistaken as other races and identities all of the time, and I love it. I do. I love that people think that I'm North African or Arab, and by Arab they think Moroccan, Egyptian, Palestinian, South American, Latino, and I quite enjoy that because I just love getting immersed in culture. You know, a lot of that has to do with my my walk with faith. I was raised as a Christian, and I got a chance to tour the world with music. And it was in my 20s that I found Islam. And being a Muslim, that's when my mind just opened to all of the world's cultures and all of the world's people. And I wasn't so precious about identity or being nationalistic. Because I think, like, it's cool to be proud of who you are, but if you're too nationalistic, it can lead to prejudice and to all of the ugly things that we're now seeing in the media.